So what I'm going to talk about today is how not to write a SEAD grant proposal. We've been doing this for a number of years now and seen a lot of common mistakes and things that work well. I was joking with Ben before you all jumped on. I'm going to have to explain that joke. It is multidisciplinary. We have both country and Western. Is from a movie you haven't seen, probably, from the Blues Brothers, where they ask them what kind of music they play at the joint, and the response is, well, we play both kinds of music here, country and Western. So with that falling on the floor, let's go ahead. So the SEAD grants, and I should explain, ICAT's mission is everything that's at the intersection of science, engineering, art, and design. So we've misspelled SEAD on purpose to emphasize that. Our SEAD grants are intended to support projects that are creative, innovative, transdisciplinary, and that contribute to the goals of ICAT, and I'll talk about those in a little bit. And the other thing is, the SEAD grants are meant to support preliminary work that leads to later projects. If you're from an area of campus where external funding is the norm, say from the National Science Foundation or the National Institutes of Health, then that can be external funding. If you're from an area of campus where external funding is not the norm, we understand that, but we would expect the SEAD funding to lead to a larger project in terms of something with national visibility, like a performance or an event. So they're not meant to be one and done and then come back for more SEAD funding later. It's meant to be preliminary work that leads to some form of external recognition. ICAT justifies itself in some ways based upon return on investment. So we're investing in faculty and students, and then we have to show the return on that investment. So this slide is meant to show some of the research themes in ICAT. And one of the things I should say about this is we didn't decide these research themes in advance. We looked at, a couple of years ago, we looked at projects we'd been funding over the last several years and tried to group them by themes, and these are the themes that emerged. So we don't specify what the project topic should be, and I'll show you examples of those in a little bit. We're really trying to get things to come from grassroots, from faculty and students. So themes that have emerged over the last 10 years of ICAT projects include engaging community, both regionally and across the state, as well as nationally. Creating the future of work, and we're about to stand a new center up within ICAT on the future of work. Making big discoveries with immersive technologies, for example, using some of the technologies available in the cube, which I'll also talk about in a little bit. Bridging physical distance is a theme that's emerged particularly since COVID, but it actually had emerged before in terms of bridging the full breadth of the state from the Washington, D.C. area to far Southwest Virginia. Amplifying the arts has also been a theme throughout ICAT's existence, and particularly connecting the arts with other areas of research. Empowering data, particularly visualizing data in unique ways. Designing a more sustainable world, and reimagining education. A large part of what ICAT does is K through 12 outreach. Ben, this might be a good place if you have anything to add or expand upon any of these.
No, not really. No, I like what you said, and I think it's really important when you're writing the proposals to really say how it can impact some of these areas, but also that, you know, we at ICAT, we love yes and, which means yes, we're doing that, but we're also bringing in this new area, so yeah, these are the areas, but we're looking for new and fresh ideas as well. So yeah, no, this is perfect, Tom. Thanks.
Yeah, and let me just say it again. These are themes that emerged from us doing a retrospective on the things that we'd supported in the past. So these themes will change over time. And we expect that change to come from the faculty and students proposing things to us. So with that said, let me talk a little bit about the types of SEAD grants that we have available. So what we're mainly talking about today are the major SEAD grants. Those are once a year, up to $25,000 each. Those proposals are due February 11th, which is, I assume, why you're here. We also do, and I'll talk in more detail about those. Again, that's the focus of this talk. We also have monthly seed grants, minis that are up to 3K, and those proposals are due on the last day of every month. We have Jones, CENI is one of the centers within ICAT, the Center for Educational Networks and Impacts. Those are up to 3K, also monthly, and those are meant to support education-specific projects. And then finally, once a year, we have student seed grants, which are up to $1,000. Holly, do we have a later, I should know this, do we have a later slide that says the students still have to be from 3 students from at least 2 colleges? Is that correct?
That is correct. And this is the only piece of the presentation on student seed grants.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So the call for major seed grants for the upcoming fiscal year is out. Projects start July of this year, July 2022. Again, the amount is $25,000. The proposal categories are, there's an open call, and that's anything that you have in mind, subject to the expectations that I'm laying out through this talk, that it be transdisciplinary and fit within the ICAT, within the mission of ICAT. There's also some more particular categories, including advancing agriculture through technology innovation, human-centered design for intelligent data analytics tools, the future of work, which is a new category, and then high-risk, high-reward transdisciplinary course creation. Okay. So anything that you might come up with would fit under the open call, but if you have a project in mind that fits under one of the more particular calls, you can choose those as well. And I should say, we try to fund as many things as we can. So if you submit in one category and we decide you fit under better under another category, we'll consider you there instead to give you the best chance. So, and actually one thing I should have said at the very beginning is I really hate PowerPoint. And if you have questions, stop me as we go along. I do not want to save questions for the end. So either in the chat or sing out. The next few slides are just some examples of seed grants that we've done in the past year. Just a quick overview before I jump into those. We spent over $180,000 on seed grants last year. That included 5 major grants, 9 mini grants, 8 student grants, and that covered 50 faculty and 95 students from 31 departments and 7 colleges. So most of the university in terms of colleges was covered. And in the next few slides, I'm going to show you some examples of the major seed grants from last year. I'm not going to go into the particulars of them. What I want you to see is sort of the breadth of the topics that they covered and the breadth of the teams that were involved. So again, these are the major seed grants from last year. So the first one is transforming public engagement with underrepresented stories through humanities sources and immersive experience. That was Ed Guitry from History and CHCI, Doug Bowman and Chris North from Computer Science and CHCI, and Phyllis Newble from within ICAT from CENI. And the basic question here is, how do you exhibit 65,000 pages of handwritten reflections from World War II American soldiers? And using immersive technologies. So again, not digging into the technical details of the project, but looking at the team and the broad area that it fits under. You know, this team spans computer science, history, and educational outreach. The next project is performances to reduce online scams. And the team here is Catalin Party from sociology, Pamela Teaster from the Center for Gerontology, and Charles Dye and Susanna Reinhardt from the School of Performing Arts. And the goal of this is collect data from older adults and offer them assistance in the form of an interactive theater play that help prevent online scams. And they're going to be conducting performances this spring. And again, not digging into the particular details of the project, but this one spans from sociology and gerontology to performing arts. The next one is the modern skeleton, translating natural history into interactive and immersive experiences. This has Sterling Nesbitt and Michelle Stocker from Geosciences, Max Ofsa, Jonathan Bradley, Scott Fralin, and Todd Ogle from University Libraries. Thomas Tucker from the School of Visual Arts, and again, Phyllis Newell from CINE. And this one's using 3D scanning and augmented reality technology. If you're not familiar with augmented reality, it's allowing you to see the actual world and adding information on top of that. And then using 3D scanning and augmented reality technology, creating an open access skeleton of extinct dinosaurs to provide educational experiences for students. Okay. The next one is robot musical theater for promoting SEAD education and integrating art performances. And this, the team here is Phil Art Gian from Industrial and Systems Engineering, Keon Choi from Human Development and Family Sciences. I'm going to say the S in HTFS is. Ariana Wyatt from School of Performing Arts, Tanner Updegrove from ICAT, and Chelsea Lyles from CINE. And this is a robot musical theater for educational outreach as an after-school program for children.
They keep on changing.
I'm sorry, did somebody say something? Okay. And the next one is Future Monuments, which is Meredith Drum from the School of Visual Arts, Annie Stevens, John Herrera, and Rachel Rue from School of Performing Arts, and Tanner Updegrove from ICAT. And Future Monuments is a nonlinear, nonfiction cinematic installation and music performance that looks at monuments, particularly Confederate monuments, as shaping our culture and values and political behavior. And then the last one I'm going to talk about is the impact of music therapy interventions on brainwave synchronicity and interrelatedness between people with dementia and the care providers. This is Joanna Culligan from Adult Daycare, Patricia Winter from Music Therapy at Radford University, Ian Kimbrough and Sujith Vijayan from School of Neuroscience, and Isla Shapisi and Cindy Beers from Human Development, and Kai Kim from Carillion Center for Healthy Aging. And this is doing EEG studies of people with dementia and their musical memory to try and help them improve their situation.
And Tom, if I can just jump in real quick, some of you that are new to ICAT might not, and Chelsea is actually helping my point even ahead of time. So thank you, Chelsea. You'll see names from ICAT or from CENI on these, and these are people that are there to help you. So you might see like Tanner Updegrove, helping and working with the teams. These are not people that are competing for ICAT. People don't compete for ICAT grants. There are people that are joining there to help you do a good job with outreach engagement or using the cube and ICAT facilities, things like that.
Thanks, Ben. I should have been more clear about that. I appreciate that. Okay. So, actually, it's a great segue into the next slide. So some of the benefits of the SEAD grant funding is if you are the recipient of a SEAD grant, and it's any SEAD grant, so whether a major or a mini, you get access to ICAT resources, and those include specialists. So for instance, the Cube has a lot of different technologies that are in there. We don't expect people to be experts in that. So we have several people, including Tanner Updegrove and David Fanistich, who will help you if you have a project that needs the Cube. We also provide access to outreach events, such as our weekly play dates during the semesters, the Science Festival in the fall, and other events. And then you also get access to the ICAT physical studios. So as I mentioned, the Cube, which is a large black box theater and immersive environment that creates the studio for prototyping, which is 3D printing, laser cutting, electronics prototyping. Experience and Perform are a couple of other spaces within the Moss Art Center. And then we also have several spaces in the media building. And so if you're a recipient of a SEAD grant, you will have access to all of these things. And it really depends upon the needs of your particular project, but we will work with you to provide you the access you need to be successful. So eligibility and funding for the major SEAD grants, they're open to all Virginia Tech faculty. The funding will be awarded in July, and it's E&G funding. For those of you who know what that is, Holly, stop me. You're nodding, so I'm not lying to them. It is E&G funding, which means it runs on the Virginia Tech fiscal year, which starts July 1st. Because of some vagaries of that, we can't actually get the awards to you until get the funds to you until July 15th, and you have to expend them before the end of the fiscal year. So the following July, June 30th, actually.
We always tell people it takes a little while for the money to trickle down from the top level of the university to ICAT, so we can push it out to everybody.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Holly.
Sure.
So the unspent funds have to be transferred back to ICAT within 45 days of the project's end date. And the other thing is we do not provide funds for conference travel. So that cannot be part of your budget. Some expectations for funded projects, and this is not an exhaustive list. This is just sort of the highlights. In terms of reporting, there'll be midpoint and final reports required with presentations for the midpoint reports in February and the final presentations in August. So a month after you finish your project. We'd like documentation as you go along. A big part of what we do is focus on the process of transdisciplinary work. So this documentation helps us make a case for developing those processes. So videos and photos of your process. And in my experience, and Ben, jump in if you want to elaborate on this, folks who are more from the arts and design side are usually more comfortable with documentation as they go along, and folks from other parts of the campus are not. So we're trying to make this point ahead of time so that the whole team's aware of them.
And that's perfect. And if you, for teams that maybe not have designers or artists particularly on their team or just have difficulty, there are ways we can help you with that documentation as well. So just, again, ICAT is here to help and to support you. We're small institute, so we can't do everything, but we're going to help you in any way we can with things like documentation. And the presentations that Tom just talked about too are supposed to be fun. They're just Ignite style. They're just present 3 slides. We started it during COVID, and what was wonderful is that I think, and some folks are actually on the Zoom call, they can say more, but I think everybody really enjoyed hearing what everybody else was doing. And so that's why we continued it, not just for our reporting. And as Tom said, we have to report this up the chain, but not just for our reporting, but actually for everybody to see what everybody else is doing, which is a segue into some of the engagement activities that Tom is going to talk about.
Yeah, and as Ben was talking, that reminded me of, it's going to sound like a bit of a tangent, but I'll bring it back, I promise. I was in the queue talking with a person I think was an engineering student working on a SEAD project, and I said something about documentation. He's like, "Oh, I haven't started working on the user manual yet." It's like, nope, that's not what I meant by documentation. I wanted pictures of the drones that you're working on right now, and I got this sort of deer in the headlights look. And so anyway, I just wanted to make that clear to everybody, again, particularly for people from parts of campus where documentation means something you do at the end and not throughout the process. Third bullet, we expect you to participate in various ICAT engagement events. So as I mentioned, we have weekly play dates on Friday mornings during the semester. So we expect you to give a play date presentation, and we'd like you to attend the others to see the other work that ICAT's supporting. At the end of every spring, we have ICAT Creativity and Innovation Day. It's Holly, first Monday in May, or last Monday of classes. Is that correct?
Both. May
Yes.
2nd is the date for this year.
Yes. For them, it would be May something 2023. So yeah,
Right.
May mumble. So ICAT Open at the Source, the Virginia Tech Science Festival, which is in the fall. And finally, the last thing is we expect you to acknowledge ICAT support in publications, workshops, performances, and so forth. Ben and I often joke, actually, I often joke with Ben that the A in ICAT stands for afterthought. We've we've had several projects where we supported things, and then a couple years later, you would never know that ICAT was actually involved at the beginning of them. And again, like I said at the beginning, the way we show our value to the university is on return on investment. And so that acknowledgement helps us to make that point. What I want to make clear though is for a lot of these projects, we're only part of the support. The faculty who are pursuing them have found other sources of support, and that's completely fine. We don't expect to say, oh, ICAT was the sole supporter or anything like that. If you have a number of different sources of support, that's great. We just want to be listed among those. So, and I want to show this clip from a play date in the midst of COVID from one of our SEAD grants with Matt Hull, and I'm blanking on where Matt is from. Is he from Fisheries? What's that?
ICTAS.
He's from ICTAS? Okay.
Yeah.
And then Justin Perkinson from SOPA, and Phyllis Newell from ICAT Cine was being the MC. But I'll just let them speak for themselves. But this is our hope for what happens with SEAD grants and teams.
Sure, you got the gist of it. What is the dynamic between the artist and scientist? And was there any tension between the aesthetic of the piece and the desire to reveal information about it?
Cool. I got the most of that. It was really contentious, not at all. Matt, do you want to go first, or I'm gonna have?
Yeah, because I got a great response to that. Okay. Having gone through this process, I'm not sure which is which. So, yeah, who's the artist and who's the scientist here? So, what has been cool for me is to hear Justin refer to the science issues that are going on here, just as well as any scientist, any conservation biologist that I work with.
So, sorry, that's about to play again. And really, that's our hope, that these teams, we're trying to support work that's at the intersection of science, engineering, art, and design. And we want these teams to be working in the margins between their traditional disciplines. And we'd like them to, true transdisciplinary work creates something new. And it's not just the sum of the pieces that they go into the team, but actually they become a greater whole. And I see a couple things going by in the chat. Yes, Itzo, that's a very good point. Going back to the documentation comment, it's really about documenting the process, not documenting the end thing. So this is a repeat of one of the very first slides. Again, the SEAD grants are intended to support projects that are creative, innovative, transdisciplinary, and that contribute to the goals of ICAT. And again, lead to larger projects, either external funding or performances and events with national visibility. Actually, but this might be, since I've run through a lot of things, this might be a good point to just stop and give people a chance to ask me a question if they'd like, before I jump into the review criteria. Anything I can clarify? Going once, twice. Okay, my dog is being good and not howling in the silence. So, so the review criteria, and I should say a little bit about the process. We have a set of senior fellows at ICAT, and what we do is we assign each proposal that comes in, we assign 3 senior fellows to review it, and they write the reviews and score them. We bring them back and then rank them based upon their reviews. And again, there's the different categories. And when that ranking comes out, if a project has put itself in one category, but it's actually ranked more highly because of the way the rankings worked out to be better in a different category, we will move it to that category and consider it there to give it its best chance. But the criteria that we're looking at are the intellectual merit and innovation, the transdisciplinary nature of the team, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a second. The correlation to the mission of ICAT, the broader impact, the possibilities for after, particularly for the potential channels for leading to future work, a clear outcome and deliverables, a timeline, and the alignment with the project categories and themes. Okay. Now, some common issues. This is remember the title of this is how not to write a SEAD grant proposal. This is the not slide. So some really common issues that come up is not clearly defining what the outcomes and deliverables are. And particularly one particular example is how are you going to curate it for an external audience? So if you're planning on submitting it to the NSF or NIH, or if you're planning on creating some sort of national performance or event. Another common issue, believe it or not, is being poorly written and full of typos, incomplete sentences, things like that. My advice there is something that I was told when I was a grad student, which is pity the poor reviewer. Don't make the reviewer have to work to figure things out. Okay. Another really common problem is not being transdisciplinary. Okay, so the team's not integrated, and in particular, 2 departments in the same college is really not transdisciplinary. A couple of people from the same department is totally not transdisciplinary, and I'll pick on my own department here. I'm a professor in electrical and computer engineering. We've received proposals in the past where it's 2 people from my department who happen to do slightly different things, but because they're so deep down in the stovepipe of what they do, they think it's totally different. So the antenna, the joke I like to say is the antenna guy talking to the signal processing guy, which from outside ECE looks like 2 of the same people. So if you feel yourself going, oh, this person just down the hallway from me does something totally different, but they're in my department, please don't do that. Look for somebody in a different college. Okay. We're really looking for things that are transdisciplinary. The other piece of this is you might have a team that spans colleges, but the proposal's written as if you're going to work independently and throw things over the wall, back and forth over the wall, and you're not going to achieve that meld, from the little clip I showed you earlier with Justin and Matt. So make sure the team is integrated, and a team that's integrated it will often be clear that there's innovation for multiple people on the team, not just one lead area. Okay.
And if I can jump in there,
please do.
The role of ICAT is to help you all do things that are hard. It is really hard to work across disciplines. It is really hard to work across college. And that is ICAT's space. And sometimes we get pushed back the other way. Well, why don't you support monodisciplinary projects? There are other avenues, through your own colleges and things like that, dean support, departmental support that help, hopefully help you do, those kinds of projects. ICAT is here to try to do these hard things that cross. And that's why, we've both been emphasizing we're here to help. If you need introductions to folks across discipline, we're happy to help you do that. This is the hardest stuff to try to do at a university that's so focused on the individual departments and colleges, and that's why we're here, is to really help you do that.
Can I add something?
Please do.
So in terms of the introductions, like Ben said, if you are looking for a collaborator and aren't quite sure who might be a good option, feel free and drop one of us an email and just say, here's what I'm looking to do, and I think I need to partner with somebody in blah. The video that Tom showed of Matt and Justin, it was actually Matt Hull that came to us and said, here's what I'd like to do, but I don't know who to work with. And we helped connect him to Justin, and it's been a beautiful partnership. So feel free to reach out to us with those questions.
Yes, a big part of, thank you, Holly. A big part of what Ben and I do is matchmaking. It's like, somebody knows they have something missing from their team, and we help them make connections. So please do reach out to us if you're in that situation. Some helpful hints. This goes back to the pity the poor reviewer. Write for a lay audience. Our senior fellows span most of the colleges in the university. You're not going to be writing for somebody who's in your particular discipline or academic field. So try to write for this lay audience. Titles, shorter is better, as maybe you can see from some of the earlier slides, which I was having PowerPoint issues with. And I see a kerning joke going by in the chat. So but maybe I screwed some of those up in the transition from PowerPoint to Google Presenter and back. So this isn't a journal article, and that's related to it's not a journal article in your field. So it doesn't have to be sliced that thinly. And then again, the team, make sure your team is really transdisciplinary. Make sure you span particularly college boundaries. Make sure there's something of value for every member of the team. Okay, some contribution. And then make sure the budget's clear and detailed. And I feel like I left out a note earlier. There's someplace, one of the really common failings is something that's in the budget that's not explained or in the text, or something that's in the text that's not justified in the budget. That's also a common pitfall. So it's in terms of the submission, it's a two-step process. You submit the Google form info, the team member names, and whoever's the PI will be the primary contact, your bios, your current and pending support, the budget and justification, and then you submit the actual proposal document in a PDF to Melissa Wires with a statement of need, the methods, the goals, the plan, the timeline. And the call for proposals has the full set of details.
And if I can jump in, Tom, because one of the things that has come up over the years is, wait a sec, this is supposed to be transdisciplinary faculty equally representing multiple fields, but yet we have a PI on there. And that's really only what Tom just said. It's really only just to have a point of contact that we know who to contact. We understand very clearly that I mean, we're not only understanding, that is what we're requesting, that you put together a team of equal partners, equal colleagues doing this work where no one is above anyone else. So please don't infer that PI means that that's the person that's, the person on the project. We completely understand it. It's just simply, so we have somebody we can contact and get back a hold of. That's all.
Thanks, Ben. So important dates. So the proposals are due on February 11th at 5 p.m. Eastern. If you're not aware, AOE time is anywhere on Earth, which is the very last time zone for the internet before the international dateline. A number of conferences use that as their submission deadline. We are not those conferences. It is not AOE. It is 5 p.m. Eastern. And yes, Virginia, that's a hard deadline. The awards will be announced on April 20th, 2022. And again, the funds will be available just after the start of the fiscal year, after I do my invitation of Holly's funds trickling through. That's funds trickling through on July 15th. The play dates, like I said, we have play dates every Friday morning that classes are in session. They'll start next week. And actually, I think I'm on the hook for the first play date, believe it or not. So they're from 8:30 to 9:30. They're hybrid at this point. They're both live in person. Next week will be in the new dorm, right, Holly? Okay. And also online. And if you're live in person, we start at 8:30 with coffee and donuts. We start online at 9 o'clock for the actual presentation. And so the play dates are a chance to hear from faculty and student teams that are involved in various ICAT projects. Like I said, most of them will be at the Creativity and Innovation District LLC, the new dorm in the community assembly. And there's a list of them. Yes, Holly, we forgot. I might have deleted a picture on this slide. Sorry, and before I stumble through this anymore, the play dates are available at the URL that's there at the bottom of the slide. And last slide, and then I'll turn it over to you folks to ask me questions. All the info about the SEAD grants are at that URL, icat.vt.edu/funding. And we look forward to receiving your proposals on February 11th. And again, yes, that is a hard deadline. So, questions, comments?
if you don't have questions today and you walk away from this presentation and think of one, feel free to drop an email to Ben, Tom, Melissa, or I with those questions, and we'll be happy to follow up.
Holly, hi, this is Evan Lavender Smith.
Hey, Evan.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Good.
Thanks so much to you and Tom, Ben. This was really helpful. I have a quick one. Would you say is there some advantage? Is I'm involved with a couple projects that I think might fit some of these categories. Is there an advantage to applying under a specific proposal category as opposed to applying under the open call?
So we tend to get more proposals in the open category than we do some of the specific categories. Actually, sometimes we don't get any proposals in certain categories. That has happened. But again, what we'll do is we will try to give you the most chance to be successful. So if you submit in one category and it turns out you're more highly ranked, we think you fit in another category and you're more highly ranked in that one, we will shift you. So my advice is pick the thing that you think is best, knowing what you know about the project, and then we'll move it if necessary.
Yeah, we really try to fund the top projects. The categories are there. Specifically, those categories are there because we get help funding. Again, ICAT is arguably either the smallest institute or the second smallest, depending on how you do your math. And so we get help wonderfully from C+I destination area, from the call that's there for creative class making. That's a partnership between the C+I destination area and the new Academy of Interdisciplinary Studies in College of Liberal Arts and Human Sciences. So that one category has funding coming in from them. The category on agriculture has some funding coming in from the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. So that's why those categories exist, is because we get help because these other entities are also interested in collaborating with ICAT to push them forward. But what Tom is saying, and what I've said too, is that we're going to do everything to fund as many proposals as we can, and to absolutely try to get funding for the best proposals we get.
Thanks, Ben. Tom. Yeah.
We've got a question in the chat when you're ready, Tom.
Yeah, I was going to follow up on that and say the other thing, for those of you who've had NSF funding, you're familiar with this process. What happens with the NSF is they'll often come back to you just before they give you the award and they say, you asked for X amount of money, but we'd like to give you X minus some big chunk, and we'd like you to do basically the same amount of work. Ben and I do the same thing, which is we're trying to fund as many of the projects as we can. And if everybody asks for 25,000, then we can award in. But if we can cut some of those down to 20, then we can add one or two more. So what'll happen as part of the process is we'll meet with you if you're in the final cut and try to see if we can negotiate budget, because we're trying to pick up one or two projects more. Holly, in terms of the question, are many SEAD grants available for grad students? The answer is no, with a small caveat, which is lots of times a grad student's project lines up very heavily with their faculty members' research area. So a grad student can twist their faculty member's arm, things like that. It has to be submitted by a faculty member, but a grad student can be doing most of the heavy lifting. How's that for an answer, Holly?
That is what I was going to say.
Okay. Other questions? So there's one thing I wanted to say about the review process that I forgot to say, which is, so I said that all the proposals get reviewed by the senior fellows. Ben and I, on purpose, do not review the proposals. The way the process works is the senior fellows review them, they come up with their scores. Ben and I then look at the reviews and the scores, and from that try to to narrow it down to the final cut. And with a discussion, we have a meeting where we discuss the proposals with the senior fellows. But by doing that, by separating ourselves from the reviews, that allows us, I wouldn't want to have the case where we're making decisions of something that we already reviewed. So we're looking at all of them equally. Related to that is we often get requests from people like, would you pre-review my proposal before I submit it? We're not going to do that because we're not and when I say we, I mean Ben and I. We wouldn't want to read your proposal and say, oh, this is great, and then hand it off to some senior fellows who go, oh, no, this is, we don't like it because of this and because of that, because of the other thing. And so then we've sort of set you up with this false expectation that you're going to get it. So please don't send us a request to read your proposal before you submit it, but we are perfectly happy to help you, answer questions you might have about the team or the directions and things like that. But we're not going to give you we're not going to read a draft for you.